Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are here to announce a new jump project. I'm pretty excited to be getting back into RoK. It was really somewhat happenstance how everything culminated and came together, but nevertheless, we are ecstatic and with a lot of new changes happening in the scene of RoK, with kind of the jumper scene being hot and trending right now, really felt like there was a good opportunity to come back in and to always look at areas of improvement, how we can do things better, and try and make, as always, right, the most successful project that we can. So for anyone who is interested, again, I will have a link to the Discord that you can join if you want to get more information about the project. That'll be in the pinned comment and description down below. Now, to kind of give you a short gist here, which I will briefly show off from our Discord eventually ad that it will be when it is posted or when you do end up seeing it, is that right? This is going to be kind of be our mega jump project, as I like to call it. For some people who may not know, right? I have played RoK for a couple years and ended up starting doing jump projects back in around April of 2020. Ended up doing four. There's information here as well, kind of like a resume section that you can see where you can get a little bit more information on the projects, how they went. And I think it's really important when you are able to kind of establish, right, some level of experience in having successes and failures, and when you're able to really have and kind of go through those ups and downs, it really lends a lot of, at least I feel, humility and humbleness when we're going in and doing projects. One of the things that any player will find when you are a part of what I like to refer to as a BN or a Boss Nasty project is that we do things at a very high level. Right, we have a very high standard for how we operate, for our expectations, our responsibilities that we have for all the players that are joining. And we also do a lot of things that are pioneering, right? There's a lot of things that we're kind of like meta breakers, so to speak. You'll notice that even just from the ad, one thing that I'm sure stands out, which is something that is pretty unheard of, right? I've never seen another jumper project focus or specialize in a lot of the ways that projects I have done work in. And one of the things you'll notice here at the top, right, where it says having 12 to 18 alliances, something that you just don't see from current projects. And there's a lot of good reasons on why you would want to do that, things that we'll talk about eventually in our town halls, and we'll answer a lot of those questions more directly. But this kind of gives you just a top-down overview of what the project is going to be. And if we just kind of go over a couple line items, and I won't bore too much with the specific details, but I will kind of go into the high level stuff, which is that, one of the big things I think that is extremely important is, really educating the player base. One of the things you'll often hear me say a lot, along with members that may be joining that have been with me before, you'll hear this pretty consistently reiterated, which I think is very important. Right, we have to give good information, we have to give good knowledge, and we have to be willing to take the time to answer questions and to really educate the average player and arguably everyone that comes in. Because the most important thing that you really have to be able to do as a jump project, if you want to increase your chances for success, is you have to get everyone on the same page. The faster you do it, the quicker you do it, the more widespread you do it for as many members, of course, up to and always trying for everyone, is just another area that is going to increase your project's possibility of success. One of the things I also talk about, which I think is very important, is that no project is foolproof. That's mine included. It's one of the things I always tell people is that you have to have realistic expectations, right? When you're doing a jump project, the level of success and the odds of success for that project working out are entirely dependent on the amount of prep, structure, organization, care, and in my opinion, education that you do for every single player that joins, right? You have to almost kind of create this buy-in of people really believing in what you're doing, your vision, what your goals are, what you want to see the kingdom. And then more importantly, on the player end, right, as a player, you should really be choosing a project that is right for you. The great thing that I've always thought about RoK within the jump scene is there's always a bunch of jumper projects that are going on pretty much simultaneously. And because of this, it gives players options. And one of the things you'll always hear me say to every player, even if you join my project, is don't just join one and be done. Go and join multiple projects, right? Go and read what they do. Spend a couple days in there. See how the management interacts. See how the announcements are. See the information. What are their goals? What is the vision that they're looking to implement? Really do your due diligence as a player. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give to any new player that's coming in, right? Reach out to the leaders. Reach out to the people that are there already in management, right? And, ask them questions, maybe ping them in a chat, right? See what their responses are. Again, do they have organized responses, even if they might just kind of direct you to a resource that already exists that can answer your questions? If it doesn't, how did they respond? Is it something where it's like, hey, it's a great friendly reminder, or you know what, hey, I'll be available in a bit for a voice chat. I'll hop in this channel if you want to talk, right? Again, doing these types of things can really give you a good indication on the type of individual or individuals that are going to be running the project. And that can also be an extremely big factor for you as a player on, right, do you think you might mesh well, right, playing for these people, playing for this group. So again, those are just a few things I want to point out that I think are extremely important. But outside of that, right, these are some things that you'll see us do for our project, which, again, some of the big things is that, for our zone 3, right, we're going to be looking to probably have like 6 plus or minus. Now, that can be a few less, it could be a few more when it comes to zone 3. Having proactive balance for the alliances is extremely important. In this project, we will be proactively from day one working over time balancing out the alliances. We are never going to have a mega alliance, 2 mega alliances, never going to happen. Our goals for the kingdom are to have active, balanced alliances. If we can have 12 active alliances that go into KVK and they're all between, 10 to 50 million, right, or within 100 million power of each other, that's fantastic, right? That is what we are going to be striving for. I'm a big proponent and believer that activity beats power, with a small asterisk on power, because I do think rally leaders are obviously very important and they are needed, but with moderation, right? I think at the end of the day, activity is always going to beat power, right? As long as you have that little bit of asterisk there on power. When it comes to kind of MGEs, right, the Mightiest Governor events, right, I think rotating between, attempting to rotate between kind of fixed and free-for-alls, I'm a big proponent of fixed events. I think that if you are able to organize fixed events and players are able to get behind that and they understand why you are doing a fixed event, that's the most important thing. Most projects, just like most kingdoms, fall very short. And when I say most, I literally mean like 99.99999% of all projects and kingdoms fall very short when it comes to educating the player base, taking time to explain why we're doing things and how it is benefiting the players that are either in most need of it or that can take most advantage of it, and how that can help you, even if you as a player are not within that benefiting or advantageous group, how it still can help you, and then also how it's helping the kingdom, right? I think this is the part that, in my experience, right, for playing Kingdom Builders almost all the way back since like Game of War back in 2013, I've noticed for the games that I've actively played for periods of time, that most kings or queens, even alliances, just really fall short on that, right? It's one of the most important parts and really key proponents that allow for players to just stay in the know, right? It's like kind of getting a newspaper that you get delivered to your house every week. It's like out of sight, out of mind, right? If you don't know, if you're not getting information, or you don't know why something's happening, why we're doing this, and all of a sudden you're just getting the announcement and you're not kind of being prepped or being given an explanation, that can be a turnoff. So we're big fans of taking a very kind of proactive, educational, but more so informing steps. And again, that kind of gets to the next line, right, which is educating the kingdom, right, through informative king and alliance mails. Doing things like running feedback rounds, right, doing kingdom town halls, right, where we get players involved, and we do weekly town halls with all the players. We do management meetings. I think that's very important between your upper management staff, which is basically your officers and your leaders, right, trying to incorporate all players within the kingdom. That's another big thing, right? In projects that I run, it's not just our way or the highway, so to speak, right? We like to get everyone involved. It doesn't matter if you are an alliance that is a part of our project when we land in the final kingdom or not, right? I think the biggest thing is to be pro server when you go in, right? The whole idea really for a jump project is to go in so you can establish presence, and you are able to have kind of like an overwhelming visibility that you have the most amount of people in your group, because the idea is that you want to support, hopefully, and manage the kingdom, and where you have the best interest based on the vision that you want to see brought to fruition. And oftentimes projects can kind of get lost in that idea where it's almost like pro group or pro alliances instead of it being pro kingdom, right? While you're just following along, right, with what the majority controlled groups' thoughts are, right, what their direction is that they're going in. Now, outside of that, the last kind of big thing, and I will have some time cards. I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning of the video when I think about that now. But the hierarchy that this project is going to run off of. And I always like to explain to people, right, there's different ways that different groups can manage their hierarchy, how they do their structures. But for my projects, right, that we like to do, or I should say I like to do, is that we go in a direction of like leadership, council, officers and department leads and members. Now, leadership, in this case being myself, right, has the right to make final calls when necessary. This means that, right, it can just happen anytime, but I'll dive into that a little bit more specifically in a moment. And is predominantly oversight, right, to make sure the kingdom and group is following through on the direction and integrity, right, of what we promised the group, of what and why we're even recruiting people in the first place. And to be specific here, right, with the council, I have always viewed my councils as board of advisors, right? We have discussions. These are leaders. It should also be noted I'm not going to be leading an alliance. And I'll get into that in a moment. Oh gosh, so I always keep agua near me. But one of the important things here is that, right, the way that a typical or a standard council operates is you end up having, right, anywhere from like 1 to a couple reps per alliances, however many alliances that you have. And that's just if you have a standard council, right, you could have a high-low council. But for our group, it's pretty much a standard council, and that's where discussions, conversations, questions, right, we might do things like there might be times when necessary where we'll do votes, right, again, when it is necessary, and of course if it's necessary. A big reason why we do things like this, and we kind of talk beforehand on how we're going to manage things, is so you can actually avoid a lot of those, what I feel like is just time consuming and ultimately unnecessary conversations. And a great example of this would be if you already have it laid out on how you're going to run your MGEs, you don't need to sit there and talk about how you're going to do your MGEs, because you already have a game plan. The people that are coming on board in your project obviously agree with that, otherwise they wouldn't want to sign up in the first place. Same thing for the players, right? That's why it's very important that the people that come on, you interview them, you make sure they have a good and full understanding before they join in the first place. Otherwise, of course, right, there's plenty of options out there, whether it be joining or creating their own project. But this is how we like to do things, because I think it's very important to have some level of oversight, right? There has to be someone within this type of a project that is overseeing the direction so we don't get off track, So we are staying true and consistent to our integrity that we promised the players that are joining. I think that's very important, right? And so again, this is ultimately how we do those things. And like I said, right, standard discussions, all those things will happen on if something new comes up, right? Obviously, all of those things will always start off at a council level. It's just more of if there's something that's absolutely needed to happen, right? And if it's necessary to happen where we are falling off course or we're deviating from that direction, right? That's just where I would step in and say, look, we're going to make sure that we are honoring what we promised people. So that's just a really important part. And again, that I also understand that's not going to be for everyone. Some people enjoy playing in a group where they have a standard council system. Some people like doing it where, you maybe only have a couple alliances in the council. Maybe it's like a high-low type system. But having kind of like one person that, when necessary, right, is able just to say like, look, this is what we're going to do, I think presents its own benefits, right? Especially if you have someone in that position that is very much pro kingdom, right, pro server, and they are there literally in an objective and unbiased way because they really have everyone's best interests at heart, right? And I think again, even though I make it sound great, right, when you hear me talk about it, it's one of those things where, when you play in this type of a system, more specifically, right, with me and my projects, right, and whether we conversate or we talk, you'll hear me speak in the town halls, you really get a better sense of it, right? Sometimes when you're just kind of hearing it talk, the immediate thing that probably pops up into most people's heads is dictator, and I can guarantee you it's really anything but that. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I like to try and take a little bit of extra time to explain. But beyond that, that pretty much, I think, is kind of getting close to summing up where we're at as far as kind of what our goals and some of our visions are. I can tell you one thing as well is that we don't plan to be an Imperium kingdom. I think that's like the very last thing that I would like to do. Of course, if you have an account here or you have a main account and you're interested in bringing it over, of course, obviously we'll do our best to make accommodations there depending on what season we go into. I think really when you look at something like a season 2 and a season 3, right, if you end up bringing people in from older kingdoms, right, it's probably more ideal to try and bring in more specific rally leaders that you need or other specific positions that you need earlier on, before the floodgates kind of are able to fully open once you end up getting to SOC seasons or slash KVK Force, depending on how you want to refer to it as. And okay, I think I'm pretty good though, right? I feel like I covered the majority of things. I guess the very last thing that I could mention is that with this project, right, we really hold management when it comes to specifically leaders and officers, right, at a higher level of expectation. And when it comes to as far as when the project would start, well, again, it also depends on how long that's going to take. We're not really putting a timer on it because I think it's very important that we have enough well-groomed leaders that have gone through our application process, have been vetted, right, if needed, and then we're able to bring them on. And I think once we're able to start collecting leads and then we have a number that we're really content with, then obviously we'll pull the trigger. So this isn't really going to be something that might happen in a couple weeks. I mean, there's obviously the chance it could go for a month or two, just depending, and obviously we'll give updates accordingly. But that it pretty much covers, for the most part, what the goals are and what we're looking to do. I'm pretty excited to actually start this back up. And like I said, I will make sure to put some time cards in here. I was not expecting to have this video be almost 19 minutes. But I do hope that everyone, at least if you have been watching this long, you appreciate the context, you appreciate the explanation, and the thoroughness provided in some of, but not all, the areas. And again, if there's any questions, comments, feel free. Let me know in the comments once again down below. That is it for me. Until next time, we will catch y'all later.